can tell Andrew Jackson is reading. Can you let Jalen see? All right, let's read this together. It gives me pleasure to announce to Congress that the benevolent, say that word, benevolent policy of the government, steadily pursued for nearly 30 years in relation to the removal of the Indians beyond the white settlements, is approaching to a happy consummation. Stop that for a second. Reread that sentence to yourself really quick. Now let me translate that for you. All he's saying is, I'm happy to tell you today that those Indians that we've been chasing, pursuing for 30 years, those ones that we were trying to remove from the white man's land, it's finally coming to a happy consummation, a happy ending. That's all that says. So can you understand that people in those days just used a different vocabulary that we have? But to me, I think if you're going to speak to Congress, what might be some reasons that I would use a high vocabulary?
Because they might think it's stupid to use little words and they think you need to go farther.
If I'm going to do a convincing of some very, people in Congress, are they intelligent?
Yes.
They need to use advanced words.
They want to think that you're smart enough to be a president.
Okay, right. Because Andrew Jackson at this time was the president. Okay. So we wanted to use a high vocabulary. So does that mean that I need to have a high vocabulary if I want to be high up?
Yeah.
I probably should, right? I need to at least be able to have enough vocabulary that I'm able to convince others that I'm really good at my job, right? What if Miss Springer stood up here and she didn't understand what consummation meant? Or I didn't understand what benevolent meant?
You might need to go back to teach.
I wouldn't be a very good teacher. I would need to practice, right, to at least be able to understand what those words mean. But I also, sometimes I don't understand what words mean. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect. What do I do to words that I don't understand? I could. What if I don't have one?
You're going to ask your mom and dad
My mom and dad are at work. I want to know what benevolent means right now.
go to the library and get a dictionary.
I could. What are some other ways that we find out what words mean?
Look at a third year.
Context clues. Right? Don't I use the word? I use a word in its place and I try to figure it out. So the benevolent policy of the government. The government has a policy. It's given him pleasure to announce that the Congress, that the benevolent policy of the government, steadily pursued for nearly 30 years in relation to the removal of the Indians beyond the white settlements, is approaching a happy ending or consummation. So if it's benevolent, it's not yet
Done yet.
happy. It's not happy yet. So if it's not happy, what is it?
It's sad.
It's got to be sad or worrisome or something that's not happy, right? So using the context clues that I know what the word happy means. And I know that the word, it's steadily pursuing it, steadily chasing it. It's not quite happy, but it's headed there. So what he's saying is benevolent is a word that means unhappy or unpleasant. We use the word benevolent in everyday life to talk about people that are unfortunate, people that don't have everything that we have, the benevolent, the people that are lower than us, people that don't have a lot. Jimmy is relation to who? Prince Pratt and the Whipping Boys, yeah. So this is a benevolent thing. So let's look at the next sentence where it says two important. Read that with me. Two important tribes have accepted the, good job, provision made for their removal at the last session of Congress. Who are we removing, by the way? And it is believed that their example will induce the remaining tribes also to seek the same obvious advantages. So let's hold on for a second. Two tribes are going to do what? What do you think?
They're gonna try and maybe like.
See the word removal in there. Two tribes.
They're gonna try to remove the American.
That's what's happening.
And they're accepting it. They're giving away.
Two tribes. Two tribes. And what are the other ones going to do?
Fight for it.
Their example will induce the remaining tribes also to seek the same obvious advantages.
So once the two tribes do it, they're gonna copy them like the copycat.
Okay? They're going to do it with them, you said, right? That's exactly right. Do you agree with that? So do y'all understand these extremely hard words? Can you figure out what they mean? We don't know every single word, but can you just sort of induce what they mean? Right? Okay? Mm-hmm. So, look at the next paragraph. Read that to yourself. Let me finish the cup. Okay. Mostly yes. So what's happening in the next one? I see two words that jump out at me. Which one
It
jump out?
says that the consequences of sea removal will be
I like it. Did y'all see speedy removal too?
Yeah.
So what is it going to happen?
Maybe kind of like remove them really fast.
they're gonna try to get more people to like help them get rid of them.
Now, is this a happy coincidence, consequence for the Indians?
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
They're gonna go to war.
They're gonna go. Yeah. They're
Ultimately.
gonna try and have a fight.
Mhm. That's right. Eventually we know it's going to happen. Eventually we know that these poor Indians are going to get kicked off into a what? Reservation. So we know that this is not going to have a wonderful end, right? But what we're seeing from Andrew Jackson is the attitude of Americans is one of very much of confidence. They're confident that the Indians are going to get off the land and it's going to go quickly, speedily, and that they're going to be completely removed. But we know that it takes them years and years to actually get that under control, right? It's going to take them years before they're able to actually move those Indians to the reservation. All right, so what we're going to discuss today is about those consequences for not only the Indians, but for the people. Like we discussed in our story the other day, jumped along the Mohawk. If you'll remember, there were several clashes with Indians. But also, it was during the what war? Revolutionary War. So we do know that they weren't just clashing with Indians, they were also clashing with Tories. Were the Tories and the British, were those the same thing? Tories, British? Tell me the differences. Who knows the differences? Tell your partner right now what the differences are, if you remember. Okay, so let's remember that, because I see some people, some groups, that whose group is a little confused. Yeah, okay. Tories, let's remember. Tories were what color?
They were red.
They were the green with the red, right? Because they were the friends of the red. Who were the red? The British. They lived in England, and they were invaders. Tories weren't invaders. Tories were, they were King George's friends who lived in America. So Tories were the people that were against the revolution. They were against the Revolutionary War, but they were on the side of King George, and they were trying to fight the people that were rebelling.
And they got Indians to help them, so that just made it harder on the Americans.
And why did we say the Indians want to rebel?
Because they're losing their own.
Ding, ding, ding. How does that relate to this that Andrew Jackson is saying?
Andrew Jackson lost his family, so the Indians would lose their land.
Okay. Payback. How many years difference is the Revolutionary War? What year was that?
1776.
Okay. And then this is happening with Andrew Jackson in what year?
1830.
So how many years difference is that? Let's do the math.
Almost 200. Like 100 to
Well, 1776 to 800 is what? What's the difference? 1776. Well, I would need to subtract 1776 from 1800. I get 24. Let's add that to the 30 years between 1800 and 30. So 24 plus 30. That's only 54. That's a lot of years, isn't it? That's someone's whole lifetime. Later, we are still having trouble with Indians. It did not get better. And did you know that we still have trouble with Indians? Didn't we talk about that? We discussed about how the Indians are still fighting for their rights in the Supreme Court. Aren't they still arguing things? Do you remember the example that we used about the license plates? And how everybody filed the suit to try to keep from paying what? A tax on that license plate. So we're going to use those things that we know about Indians that we're still having struggles with them because they're still not pleased that we took their land. Okay, we're going to use that in our Socratic seminar. So what we're going to do is I want you to take out your notebook paper. Where are my table leaders? Raise your hand, table leaders. Okay, table leaders, you're going to get us started. You're going to involve in the Socratic seminar first. Okay, so what I want you to do is you're going to hold your own discussion about what happened because of manifest destiny to the Indians, the consequences for the Indians of manifest destiny. Okay, we know that manifest destiny happened over a long time, even more than 54 years. It happened a long time. So we want to discuss maybe what the Indians did. So what we're going to do is we're going to construct some questions to get you started on your Socratic seminar. And what we're going to do is I'm going to write those questions, keep them all on the board, so that we can ask some of these questions, and we wanted to have them like starter discussion points. And I'm going to write just some topics of discussion on the board, and then we're going to sort of build on our Socratic seminar from that.